Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MMA Island podcast. I am Jack Kennedy alongside Keelan McNamara and Hunter Boss, joining us as our third member now. We're so glad to have him with us. We have a great podcast lined up for you. In just a couple days, a lot of news came out, and we'll get you three big pieces of news, starting with one of the biggest news that we've heard in a long time. Leon Edwards will be facing Nate Diaz in the co-main event slot for UFC 262. And this is also going to be a 5 round non-title fight co-main event, the first in UFC history. Hunter, starting with you, what do you make of this news?
Anyone that said that they saw this coming is lying. No one ever saw this coming. Nate Diaz coming back to fight the number 3 ranked welterweight in the whole world. Unbelievable. Nate Diaz right now is not even ranked on the
Yeah,
top 15 welterweights in the entire UFC. But the name alone is carrying him through this division, which is amazing. He's coming off a loss to Jorge Masvidal due to doctor stoppage, and I just can't wait to see what this fight is going to bring. Leon Edwards definitely the type of fighter that Nate Diaz wants to fight. You know, he stands up really well. He clenches every now and then, and his ground game's okay. Nate Diaz, on the other hand, stand up, very durable. His ground game, super underrated. Black belt Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. So much could be said about Nate Diaz. I cannot wait for this fight to happen.
Yeah, I didn't see this coming. I ain't gonna sit here and make lies about this. No one saw this coming. Are you crazy? No, I don't think I've seen anyone ride out one win as much as Nate Diaz has for his entire career, and that's credit to him. Props to Nate Diaz. This is actually an amazing fight. I think people are getting so caught up in the hype already, like Hunter said about the Diaz name, that they're actually not appreciating how good of a fight this actually is. And a few weeks ago, we were just talking about who Leon Edwards was going to face next. And funny enough, shock hard, none of us mentioned Nate
not at
Diaz
all.
because Nate Diaz wasn't ranked anywhere. And all of a sudden, Nate Diaz is fighting the number 3 ranked welterweight on the planet Earth. I just don't know anymore. The last 2 years don't make sense to anybody about anything, and this just adds to it. But it's going to be a very good fight. Leon Edwards is a very, very good kickboxer. He's durable, and he's not just a pace pushing fighter, but he's a very fast, rapid pace pushing fighter. He doesn't give you a lot of time to think in the octagon. But then there's hardly any better counter boxer than Nate Diaz. His boxing game's very underrated. I think he has a 1 or 2 inch reach advantage over Leon too. So if Leon decides to keep this on the feet, that's a factor he's going to have to bear in mind. And then on the ground, there's really not much you have to say to advance Nate Diaz. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt. Him and his brother Nick both are. Nate's just an anaconda on the ground. In the first fight against Conor McGregor, the one fight that he's won, all right, Conor's jiu-jitsu is less than stellar, but we saw how quickly Nate
Oh,
did
yeah.
the damage that he did. And we've seen that against guys like Kurt Pellegrino and going back further again, getting a triangle and not having to finish it with any arms. It's insane. So this is actually going to be an amazing fight, but I dread to think what the welterweight division is going to look like if Nate actually does win this, because those rankings are going to get messed up, and we've just spent 6 months tidying them up again, and then Nate Diaz comes in and potentially messes it all up. But no, I'm really looking forward to this. It's a very, very fan friendly fight. It's going to be easy on the eye. And I think it's going to be really, really good to watch. I hope Nate puts up a very competitive fight, and I'm sure he will.
Yeah, I like what you said there. It's welterweight's already chaotic as it is right now. It's all over the place. And with Leon Edwards, all the controversy he's had in his last fight, despite the fight ending the way it did, which was so disappointing the way it was going, I think he looked phenomenal for not fighting in a very long
Oh,
time,
yeah.
obviously a year and a half. I think he looked amazing, and he was picking his shots. He was really just stalking down Bilal Muhammad, and he looked as good as ever. So I think Leon Edwards is going out there to prove a point. Obviously, Nate Diaz always brings it. He's always fun. He can take a punch. It's going to be amazing. They're just going to walk forward and they're going to throw. And I think the biggest X factor, I do give Leon Edwards a very significant advantage on the feet. I know the reach is for Nate Diaz, but I think just how technical and how just high level of a striker Leon Edwards is, I just give him a strong advantage on the feet. And also the damage Nate Diaz has taken over the course of his career. We saw versus Jorge Masvidal, he got cut up and bad, and that was really why that fight ended up being stopped, just because any punch really opens up his skin. But then again, you reverse it on the ground. Nate Diaz has a huge BJJ advantage over Leon Edwards. The question is, can he get it on the ground while surviving all of the attack and the onslaught that Leon Edwards will be putting on the feet, and also the pace and pressure that Nate Diaz puts on Leon Edwards? Can he keep up with that for 5 rounds? And that's the thing I kind of want to touch on for this too, because you guys nailed the fight itself. It's going to be awesome. Nate Diaz returning. It's a 5-round non-title fight co-main event. I have been wanting this for so long. Dana White hinted at it. I'm so excited. And I hope this opens up the possibility for more 5-round co-main events that aren't that, because there's so many good matchups that just ended too soon that should not have ended too soon, especially on big pay-per-view cards like this. This fight absolutely should be 5 rounds. It's so hyped up. I'm trying to think of an example, but I've watched so many great fights almost spoiled because it ended too soon. It's very interesting. I think this might have been a co-main event. It either was the main event that was short notice, but Yair Rodriguez, Jeremy Stevens 2 is a fight like that where the first one obviously ended up with the weird eye poke finish thing. But the second one, Yair was really dominating for the first 2 rounds, but then Jeremy Stevens caught a second wind at the end of the 3rd round and really started to change it around. And I was like, oh, that would have been really interesting to see how that went. So I'm so happy this is 5 rounds and an overall amazing fight, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, one thing I'll add real quickly, just on the technical side of the fight. Obviously, I fully agree with Jack. I think the stand-up unquestionably goes to Leon as the immediate advantage. But one thing we've all touched on, and one thing people out there should really consider if this fight gets to the ground, and I would assume at some point it might well do.
Yeah.
Nate Diaz is not only a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but he has really, really long, skinny legs. And that's a very real problem on the ground because he's like a spider. It's very hard to get a hold of him and pin him down to escape. And what that also means is if Leon ends up in a bad position on the ground, Nate can climb up his back with his legs very easily. So he's not just pulling guard, he can actually advance position very easily and get Leon into some very, very tricky situations. He can go for things like heel hooks if Leon tries to get up, because those long legs are going to act like constant barriers to Leon. So it's just something to consider. Obviously, I'm sure the closer we get to the fight, we will break it down much more. But these are just some points to consider. And these really do factor into why it's going to be such an amazing fight.
I agree too. You know, when we see Nate Diaz, especially on his back, I feel like we see him most dangerous at sometimes. Jorge Masvidal knocked him down once or twice on his back. Did Jorge Masvidal ever try to engage with him on the ground?
No way.
Never. He knew better. He said, stand right up so they can keep striking. But that's because he knows that Nate Diaz on his back is dangerous. You know, he doesn't need both arms to submit you in a triangle. You know, as Keelan has mentioned, you know, he'll do the double flip off and then he'll submit you just to add insult to injury. This guy is dangerous on the ground. But all credit to Leon Edwards, though, too, because if Leon can just push you against the cage, he can wear you down for quite some time. We've seen that in the past from him. We've seen that for the Stephen Thompson fight too. We just see a lot of great things happen from Leon Edwards' side. And the sky is really the limit for Leon Edwards. He's still improving every single time we see him step in the cage.
Yeah, for sure. And real quick, I saw this on Instagram the other day, and I thought it was fascinating because it's a 1% chance that it happens, but it is somewhat a possibility. If somehow Jorge Masvidal beats Kamaru Usman, which I don't think any of us think that'll happen, but if that does happen, then if Nate Diaz somehow upsets Leon Edwards, which again, I would favor Leon Edwards, but if he somehow does that, then Nate Diaz goes out there and beats Jorge Masvidal in the
I don't like
BMF
where this is going, John.
A lot of what ifs here, but
you do Connor versus Nate Diaz 3 for the welterweight title, and that would be the biggest fight in UFC history. Just saying, that's on the cards now because of that. Anyways, the crazy possibilities now that Nate Diaz is fighting up, and now rolling on to some other unfortunate news, but we still get a good fight out of it. Darren Till broke his collarbone, which is a very bad injury, and is having to pull out versus Marvin Vettori. Vettori is now facing Kevin Holland in the main event on April 10th. Still a good main event for ABC. Hunter, starting with you, what do you make of this news?
It's just heartbreaking to hear that Darren Till broke his collarbone. He's out for another fight, you know. When you look at must-watch middleweight fighters, I feel like Darren Till is near the top of that list. He's entertaining to watch during the fight, after the fight, and before the fight. Even in the corner, he says some funny things. But to have Kevin Holland step in and replace him, I feel like that's the only person who could have, For an ABC main event, Kevin Holland brings the energy that we need for an ABC main event. He talks the game. He proves it most of the time, not last time. And I feel like this is a good matchup for Holland, too. I mean, Marvin Vettori's ground game is very good, don't get me wrong, and we've seen Kevin Holland lacking in the ground game. But for Marvin Vettori's last fight, we saw him dominantly on the stand-up, doing good against Jack Hermanson. I feel like both fighters here are going to have a real tough challenge, especially since this is on like a few weeks' notice. Marvin Vettori was preparing to fight Darren Till, who's a very stand-up fighter and very long fighter and very just powerful. He has huge strikes that he throws. So a whole new fighter in a few weeks for both fighters is going to be tough. But I feel like Holland can adapt to this fight style quicker than Vettori can adapt to Holland, if that makes sense.
Yeah, this is, well, first of all, it's absolutely gut-wrenching that Darren Till's had to pull out. Damn, I was looking forward to this fight. I love Darren Till. Obviously I wish him the very, very best in recovering from his broken collarbone quickly because I want to see him back in there for sure. But this is a great fight to replace it with. Thankfully not all hope is lost, but just for once I'd like to see the fight that's actually scheduled to happen. Yeah, this is going to be a very intriguing fight. Marvin Vettori's been on a real tear lately, but then he comes up against Kevin Holland, who won 5 fights in a row last year before embarrassing himself against Derek Brunson, but that's a whole different conversation. Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting factors to this fight. If Vettori wins this, then he's guaranteed bona fide top 5, if not already. This further cements it. But if Kevin Holland can pull out a win against the top contender Marvin Vettori, it almost vindicates the Derek Brunson fight. It's almost like it wipes it from recent memory and he's allowed to start again. So there's a very tactical reason to why Kevin Holland's chosen to step in. It's not just because he loves fighting, but after that fiasco of a Derek Brunson fight, a win against Vettori really puts him back in the right people's good graces again. He has the court of public opinion back on side, and far more importantly, he has Dana White back on side too. I don't think anybody would disagree that Dana would be a little ticked off after how he was acting against Brunson in between rounds. And then, he was taken to the ground and he looked like a fish that couldn't get up again. So this is going to be a test for Kevin Holland in every facet, not just in the actual fight. What we are going to see is, has his mentality changed? Is he going to take this seriously? Because if Kevin Holland takes it seriously, he has the talent to beat pretty much any top contender at middleweight. But Marvin Vettori is going to be a very, very tough roadblock to get past. And that's why I'm so intrigued by this fight. It's going to be, just such energy in the octagon. And we're really going to see what Kevin Holland's made of.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm on the same page with both of you guys. And first off, it really, really sucks that Darren Till is not going to be able to make the walk for April 10th. There's certain fighters that just bring a whole nother energy to an event, and Darren Till is one of those guys. So I wish him the best full recovery, and hopefully he can step in as soon as he is healthy. Vettori's looked amazing as of late. He really shocked a lot of people versus Hermanson, including myself. He's a real contender. His stand-up is very good. He's very good on the ground. Good takedown defense. He's a very well-rounded fighter. My biggest takeaway from this, though, is I think it is a brilliant decision for Kevin Holland to step in here. He just got humiliated in his last and really first main event against Derek Brunson, and that was his big stepping point. And he kind of treated it like a joke. And at the time and immediately after, he didn't realize what it meant to people who have supported him and people close to him. But following him on Instagram and seeing what he's been saying, he's really had a whole change of heart and he's starting to realize that this is a real thing. And what he did was not really taking that seriously against a real tough opponent in Derek Brunson. Now he gets an opportunity just like that, just after coming off that loss, to completely turn it around. And if he beats Marvin Vettori, he not only erases the loss from Derek Brunson, he propels himself up to where he would be, maybe even higher than beating Derek Brunson. So it's a great matchup for him. I think he does match up well against Marvin Vettori. The question is, can he defend the takedowns? And I don't know if he can at the moment, but if he's starting to drill it, if he's taking it seriously, I think Kevin Holland could be a real threat. He's going to make it interesting. I know Vettori is going to make it interesting. It's going to be an amazing fight. And for Kevin Holland, if he wins this, it's a risk. It's a short notice fight. So if you lose it, it's like, okay, you weren't really expected to win anyways for Kevin Holland, especially just losing that like that against Derek Brunson. But if you win it, you get all the rewards. It's amazing. Vettori, obviously, he wants to stay active. I respect him so much for taking this fight. It is tough for a fighter taking a fight on short notice, but it's almost equally as tough as for a fighter preparing for a whole nother different type of fighter on short notice, which is something I didn't think people gave Conor enough credit for whenever he fought Diaz the first time, because that was 2 weeks and he had to prepare for a totally different fight. But yeah, so I don't know. It's going to be amazing. I love it. Really sucks that Darren Till's not going to be able to fight Vettori. Hopefully we'll get to see that fight down the road. But yeah, I love the decision for Kevin Holland. That's my biggest takeaway.
Agreed.
Yeah. Sorry, Hunter, do you want to go on ahead?
I just want to say the rankings will definitely be a big factor in this fight too. Take a look at the rankings right now. We see Marvin Vettori at number 6 currently. Darren Till's at 5, so that's obviously going to change here soon. Darren Till's probably going to move down to 6, while Vettori's going to move down up to 5, probably no matter what outcome of this fight. And if Holland manages to get the win, that can fill himself up to the top 5 rankings. Like this is something crazy happening. Brunson's at 4 right now, so it wouldn't be crazy for a few more fights down the line. If Holland keeps winning, he could get that rematch with Brunson eventually, or even that title shot sooner or later. He's been fighting a lot in these past 2 years, and just to see him back it again, I want to see this high pace from Holland. I'd love to see him fight all this time because he's just must-watch TV at this point, in my opinion. But the name of the game is going to be the ground game. If he can defend the takedowns, we already seen a stand-up. We know it can put people out. But Vettori can also put people down too, like we've seen in the Jack Hermanson fight. Once again, all around fantastic fight. I might be more excited for this fight than I would be for the Till fight if it wasn't just Till. I love watching Darren Till, but Kevin Holland equally almost as fun to watch.
Yeah, there's a couple of other aspects I'll break down before I end my perspective on this. For Marvin Vettori, this might actually be a better fight than Darren Till in some respects. And what I mean is this. Darren Till has 3 of the most awkward aspects to deal with in pretty much any weight division, but especially a division like middleweight. 1, he's tall. 2, he has a very long reach. And 3, he's a southpaw. And those are all very, very difficult physical attributes to deal with. Obviously, we've talked about it time and time again on the podcast. A southpaw is very hard to deal with anyway because punches are coming from the wrong side. And if you're an orthodox fighter, it's very hard to program your brain to deal with that. But especially someone like Till who uses reach and range so well, and someone who's physically massive anyway. I mean, he was the biggest welterweight whenever he was somehow made it down to 170. But I really like the angle you took on this, Jack, and I do agree with what you said. This is what is known as a positive. It's a win-win for Kevin Holland because he's only stepping in 2 or 3 weeks' notice. He takes no risk with this fight. He can't really risk his reputation anymore because he's saving a card and it's a main event. So even if he loses, like Jack said, there was never really any expectation anyway. He's stepping up to the plate and he's doing the right thing. But boy, if he wins, he is vindicated and then some. Because no disrespect to Derek Brunson, Brunson's a forgettable fighter anyway. So that loss will be forgotten pretty easily by 85% of the audience anyway. Yeah. Plus a win over a legit contender like Marvin Vettori is going to cannonball him up the rankings too. And what's also going to happen is he's going to be fresh in the minds of the public. So whenever the public are thinking about big fights to make it middleweight, they're going to think about Kevin Holland, who stepped up in 3 weeks' notice and potentially beat Marvin Vettori. So I just add that because I love the angle you took, Jack, and I fully agree with you on that for sure. Kevin Holland, if he takes this seriously and he realizes the golden ticket position he's in coming off an embarrassing loss, he could really use this to his advantage.
Yeah, and one last thing I kind of want to say, and kind of to expand off of what you just said there, Keelan, was the first point you made. I didn't even consider that. It probably is a better matchup for Marvin Vettori. Darren Till is such a tricky guy. Not only the three reasons you mentioned there, but the fourth X factor, he has natural gifted power in his hand,
Yeah.
which everyone has to deal with. And why he is where he is today is because of that knockout power that he possesses. So, Kevin Holland, not that he doesn't have knockout power, but it's more build up, accumulation, and then he's able to do a quick 1-2. Vittori has a very good stand up game. I think he might want to stand up with Kevin Holland and see how he can do up there. And then if that doesn't go good for him, he could just try and take him down, which is I think he is where his head is at. And Darren Till actually has decent takedown defense, as we've seen from not the Kevin Holland fight, from the Kelvin Gastelum fight, and other fights like that. So yeah, it's interesting. I do like this fight now for Vittori, but at the same time, Holland's going to bring it. Like you said, and what I said earlier, like he's got nothing to lose. He's going to go out there. It's going to be amazing, and I am so much looking forward to this fight for sure. So go ahead and roll into it. And obviously, the biggest fight on any UFC card is Conor McGregor. He is going to be fighting Dustin Poirier for the third time. It's almost 90% completed. The rumor is that it will be signed by the end of this week. Deal for them to fight for a third time on July 10th-ish in July. Hunter, starting with you, what do you make of this fight and the July timeframe for it?
I see it going the same way as last time. You know, it's kind of hard to wipe it from your mind seeing McGregor on the canvas knocked out.
Yeah.
You know, Dustin Poirier, I've been saying this for so long now, is the greatest lightweight there is outside of Khabib right now. You know, this guy, stand up, fantastic. Ground game, also very underrated, very good. He has a great guillotine. Sure, he still hasn't finished anyone with it yet, but he has put everyone in that position so many times that they've almost been that close to being finished. He almost finished Khabib with it. Who finishes Khabib with a guillotine? Well, still not Dustin, but very, very close to it. Dustin Poirier, amazing fighter, but Conor McGregor is really going to bring it this time. I think he brought it last time too, but I feel like he had his mindset past Dustin Poirier. He thought, when I beat Dustin Poirier, this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, and then maybe I'll go on a boxing match, and then this is going to happen. You know, we saw Conor McGregor's stance, you know, as more of a traditional stance, more wide, a little bit more boxing-like. It just didn't work out for him. You know, this is not what McGregor is used to. So if he goes back to his roots and really puts in the time and effort like he has like in the past when he wasn't like millions of dollars rich, I feel like he has a chance of winning this. But Dustin Poirier puts in that effort no matter what in every single fight he brings. When you see a Dustin fight, you see 100% of him. You saw it in the Dan Hooker fight. You saw it in the Justin Gaethje fight. You saw it in the most recent Dustin or Conor McGregor fight. He brings it no matter what. So Conor McGregor better be ready because Dustin's going to be there.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's surprised by this news. We all knew it was coming, and we knew it would be in the summer. You know, International Fight Week, blockbuster time. That doesn't stun anybody. There's a lot of implications in this fight for both sides. You know, we've talked about some of them, you know, over the weeks. I'll start with Dustin's side. First of all, I have absolutely no problem on any level with Dustin getting the payday that he deserves. You know, Dustin's one of the real feel-good stories of mixed martial arts over the last 10 years. And I'm delighted that he's finally in this position because no one has earned it more than him. Yep. No one's given more blood, sweat, tears, all in that order than him.
Paid in full.
Yep. Yeah, paid in full, El Diamante. So yeah, I have no problem with that at all. My only concern for Dustin on a personal level is if he loses this fight, because Dustin's going to get paid no matter what happens, but I don't want to see him throw away the title shot he's given everything to gain, because Dustin's going to get paid no matter what happens in this fight. But you just know, and if everybody's honest, they know this is the truth. Dana is just waiting for the first chance to put the words Conor McGregor and title fight in the same sentence. And he doesn't need half a chance to do it. If Conor wins this fight in any way, you know he's getting the next title shot, regardless of who wins out of Oliveira and Chandler. And I don't want to see Dustin throw it away. I really don't. I mean, if Dustin had won the title against one of those guys, then fair enough. Dustin can't really lose anything out of it and everybody wins. But if Connor wins this fight and then gets the title shot, it would almost feel a bit wrong to me in a way, because Dustin's never left. Dustin's always been out here grinding and working and giving everything, as we know. And I just don't want to see him potentially throw it away. Now, that's not me saying I don't think he'll win. Dustin actually has the clear advantage this time, as Hunter just said. And the reason Dustin has the advantage is this: not only is he one step ahead of Connor, but Connor has to get 3 steps ahead of Dustin, because Dustin has that step ahead and now his next step's unknown. So Connor has to try and anticipate what that next step's going to be, and he has to somehow try and work out a counter to something he doesn't know. He doesn't know if Dustin's going to come out and try and wrestle again, or if he thinks Connor has a suspect chin and might go for the knockout, or if he's just going to target the legs. Connor has no idea what Dustin's thinking, and that is to Dustin's, massive, massive advantage. So this fight's going to be a cracker, no doubt. As for McGregor's side, I'm very concerned. Well, not very, but I am concerned, because even when we were preparing for McGregor Poirier 2, we saw Connor's ripped physique and we were like, this is the best Connor we've ever seen. This is the best Connor we've ever seen. And he went out and got smoked, deservedly, quite frankly, for coming out in a boxing stance against a kickboxer like Poirier. It was the most unintelligent decision I've ever seen. And, Connor can say this and Connor can say that. Connor can say, I was preparing for Pacquiao, my mind wasn't in the right place. As a former world champion, it is on you to know how to check a leg kick. And the fact that you don't know how to do that bothers me beyond simply laughing. The fact that you didn't know that might be a possibility coming out flat footed is really concerning. And that goes back, of course, Jack, to the conversations we had about who's really running the circus and who's in charge of what's actually going on. So if Connor has his head right, Connor has the ability to beat anyone. I really don't think we need to, give that any new sort of weight. My concern is whether he actually will or not, because we've said this time and again about Connor, and he hasn't done it. Now, that makes you wonder whether Connor's just so arrogant he thinks he can go in and starch anybody standing in front of him, which we know isn't the case. But if he has his head screwed on and he comes out in that kickboxing stance again, almost the karate stance with the teep kick to the abdomen, and he's actually disguising his shots this time, then Connor can beat anyone. But at the moment, you have to put your money in Poirier, because Poirier's shown that he actually will adapt and implement the improvements and work and work and work. But it's going to be a very interesting fight, and the implications for the title picture, the implications for the newly crowned champion are going to fissure all the way through the division for months to come.
Yeah, you guys both nailed it right there. And I remember, Keelan, we were having a long conversation off air about all
Very
of that
long.
too. Yeah, it's fascinating. It really is. My biggest thing from watching the first fight, and I picked Dustin whenever we did that Instagram live thing, and it was not necessarily. I mean, part of it was just to be different from everybody else, but another thing was just the level at Dustin that Dustin has been fighting at for so long, but consistency, and Connor hasn't had that. He hasn't been consistent with fighting and everything. I mean, his last win in the UFC was against Donald Cerrone at 170, and that's nothing like anything the level of competition he's going to be fighting now. And another thing that worries me that Keelan, you said, and it was shocking, was that Connor came out there, and obviously Hunter, you said it first too, that boxing stance. What is he doing? What has he won every single meaningful UFC fight with is that karate style stance. That's what made him who he is today, was using that stance, that awkward style to his victory. Coming out there with wide legs, but like just a high guard and everything for the boxing style. No wonder his legs got kicked out from under him. It was ridiculous. Even if he was checking the leg kicks, it would still hurt him because of the stance. And whenever the fight started, Dustin is such a smart guy, and he has such a smart camp around him. That's the one thing we were talking about too, the camp comparisons. Not that John Kavanaugh and his camp up there is bad or anything, but when you're talking about American Top Team and the level of game plans that they have too, just Dustin wasn't even trying to land that first takedown. He was just trying to interrupt the flow and have the threat of it there to slow McGregor down. He just took him down because Conor wasn't expecting Dustin to shoot one time. He wasn't expecting the leg kicks. He was expecting Dustin Poirier to go in there, stand in front of him, and just brawl with him pretty much. He didn't consider that Dustin was going to fight like Dustin Poirier, which is shocking. And that is worrying from seeing Conor in there. And Keelan, you said it, and we had a long conversation. We were saying it too. Dustin is 2 steps ahead of Conor right now. He figured him out one time, and now he gets to create a whole nother layer of a game plan on top of that to change it up even further. Conor not only has to fix his mistakes from the second fight, but also has to figure out what Dustin might be doing for the third fight, which who knows? No one knows until he gets in there. So Conor's going to be all over the place. If he thinks he just checks the leg kicks and he's good to go, he's going to be in the world of trouble because one leg kick check is fine, but whenever you have a guy with the intelligence, the fight IQ of Dustin Poirier, you're in trouble anytime you're in that fight. So I do worry for Conor in this fight. And again, Keelan, going back to what you said as well, it's such an interesting thing that Dustin chose the money over the title fight, because if he does lose, we all know who's getting the belt or getting the shot.
We just do.
It's Conor. And that's what Dana White always wants. And I know Dana White, he's going to be hoping Khabib still sees Conor, wins the belt or something, and he comes back. I know Dana White's hoping for that. So any opportunity that the UFC can get to get Conor back, they're going to try and do that. And that's why I do worry about Dustin in this fight a little bit. But on paper, looking at what you've seen from everything, Dustin Poirier should have a clear advantage. And I also do understand the theory from Dustin Poirier that get the money. He's already – I do agree with you, Hunter. I do think he is the best lightweight at the moment. Fight the winner of Chandler versus Oliveira, which that's a fascinating matchup, which we'll talk about whenever that comes up. But yeah, it's a very interesting fight. It's a fight that is going to happen. I love it. Any McGregor fight, it's unlike anything else because the hype and everything is just – you feel nerves like you don't feel with any other fight night. The eyes on the sport are different. And Dustin Poirier has a real shot to prove his name is he's already going to be in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. At least he should be. He has the opportunity now to go out there and beat Conor McGregor twice, which no one has done in the UFC or in any organization or anything, and solidify his name for the next title shot. And if he beats Conor again emphatically, I say he has a good shot at winning it too.
Yeah, definitely. If we take a look at Conor McGregor's past rematches, they usually go good for him. Like we take a look at Nate Diaz. I know he wasn't really preparing for Nate Diaz in the first fight. Then he got submitted in the second round.
Yeah.
Their second fight, amazing fight, win all 5 rounds. And we saw Conor McGregor definitely a better fighter after that. We saw him picking his shots. We saw his timing. What is the saying? Timing beats speed. Precision beats power. Thank you. Yeah. Fantastic quote. But I feel like we're also going to see the same from Conor in this one. He knows a little bit more about Dustin than he did before, and that's all he needs. He needs just a little bit more information. John Kavanaugh can work his magic if given the opportunity. But like you guys said, Dustin Poirier definitely ahead on the scorecards here already before the fight even starts. But I love how Keelan mentioned what's going to happen if Dustin loses this fight. Where does that leave him? But I feel like that gives him a few really good opportunities, especially for those lifelong MMA fans. We could see a Dustin Poirier versus Tony Ferguson fight maybe. We could see maybe another Dan Hooker fight. No one would be disappointed in seeing another Dan Hooker fight, but that's if Dan Hooker maybe wins his next one, I'd say. Or even Justin Gaethje can come back in the picture. We haven't seen Justin. He's been quiet. I mean, on Twitter in these interviews, he's been like, where is Dana right now? I would love to come back, and this would be a great fight to come back. Anyone who loses against Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, there's a lot of interesting things that are going to come out of this fight coming up, and I just can't wait to see what they're going to be, win or lose, either side.
Yeah.
Justin Gaethje really is the Will Smith meme from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He's just looking around and everyone's left him.
Yeah.
How have they forgotten about Justin Gaethje?
He's still a monster.
He's the highlight. Come on.
You don't need to tell me twice. But no, in all seriousness, when it comes to this Poirier-McGregor fight, there's two big aspects of Connor's game that absolutely bare minimum must not be present to have any kind of chance with Dustin. The first is the left hand. Now, the left hand is, of course, McGregor's atom bomb. It always has been. It's almost become a myth of legend how good his left hook is. The problem is, ever since the Floyd fight, in every single fight McGregor has fought, he hasn't even attempted to disguise or shield the left hand. So all his opponents know it's coming and when it's coming. So his opponents have a good half a second to get out of the way of it. Now, of course, that problem leads into a second major problem, which is, and I cannot get over it, that stance. What is Owen Roddy teaching McGregor? Because he's coming out so flat-footed and because he's leaning on that lead leg so much, people know that it's coming. So it's having no effect and it's losing its sort of mystique because people know that this weapon's coming and they can just get out of the way. So it's causing no harm to anyone. And then when that doesn't work, he panics and he has nothing really left to use because he hasn't reverted back to the karate style. It's not even like he can use a spinning kick or a teak kick to the body until he can get the left hand going again. He's going out like Deontay Wilder did against Fury, all flat-footed, like Jack said, with a high guard, praying that his opponent messes up and then he can get in and finish it that way. And that's not going to work against Dustin Poirier. Poirier's far too smart. And, Hunter's absolutely right to bring up the stat about McGregor in rematches. He is generally much better. The problem is Nate always fights the same way and Dustin does not. He is too intelligent to come out with the same game plan he did in the first fight. If Justin has an ounce of a brain cell or Dustin has an ounce of a brain cell, and we know he does, that fight plan's in the bin and he's not going to use it again. He'll maybe keep some of the best aspects of it, but he's not going to come out and use the same one again. He's going to have a completely new plan ready, and McGregor's going to have to adapt quickly in that cage, or like Jack said a minute ago, he will be in a world of trouble because if he comes out anywhere near as flat-footed again, his base is going to get chopped to pieces and he will have nothing left to stand on. So as far as I'm concerned, the advantage really is Dustin at this point. He has the advantage psychologically and he has the advantage in the game plan because Connor has to try and work out what he's going to come out with. And Dustin could go out there and wrestle him for 5 rounds and just drain him completely. We have no idea. So, yeah, I'm as intrigued as you guys are to see this. It's going to be massive.
Yeah, you just nailed it right there, Keelan. And going back to what like Hunter said, the quote, precision beats power and timing beats speed. Connor seemed to have abandoned that since the Mayweather fight. He's now all about the power of his left hand. Where was that quote? That quote was what made him what he was. It wasn't about the power, it was how he set it up. It's what his style brought to it. And that opened up for it is a powerful left hand, but it's because of the timing and the speed of it, or the timing and the precision of it, my bad. And all of the stuff that built up for it. The teep kicks to the body against Chad Mendes were phenomenal. That opened up the left hand. He's just now it's all about, okay, I've knocked so many people out with my left hand, it will just knock someone out. What knocks him out is setting them up for that. And he's abandoned that whole thing. If he gets back to it, his karate style and everything, and back to that mindset, he could be dangerous. That Eddie Alvarez Conor McGregor was the last we really saw of it, in my opinion. If he goes back to that, it'll be a good fight for sure.
Yeah, no question at all.
Yeah, absolutely. So awesome podcast, guys. I think that'll do it for this one. Please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. We are available everywhere you can listen to podcasts, including iTunes and Spotify. Please go ahead and make sure to follow us on Instagram at MMA.island and check out our website, MMAisland.net. Awesome podcast, guys, and thank you everyone so much for listening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.